Hi folks, it's me, the Bee, and welcome back to another review. So, John Carpenter's Vampires. I have a bit of a history with this movie. Upon hearing upon its release in the United States in the October of 1998, I wrote to my local cinema asking when it would come out in Australia, because typically in Australia we tend to get movies a couple of months or so after they come out in the United States. So I waited and I finally got a reply about a week or so later, and here's what I remember it saying distinctly. Ready? Dear Miss Harper, we regret to inform you that John Carpenter's Vampires will not be showing at length at our cinema, but we will have a midnight screening at such and such a day. Yeah, it said that. You can imagine my frustration and my disgust with Reading Cinema at the time. But anyhow, I basically played the waiting game, and I waited until the film came out on VHS, and I finally tugged on my father's arm enough in order to take me to the video store and get a copy of it. So I got it on VHS, sat down, watched it. I kind of fell in love. Let me just put it this way. As time has gone on, and as I've grown to have an appreciation for cinema and earn the capacity to think in a critical manner, I will say this. John Carpenter's Vampires is not a good movie. It's rude, it's crude, it's extremely misanthropic, but it's entertaining. And I feel the reason why it is so entertaining is back in the late 90s, you didn't necessarily have an overload of PC when it came to horror movies. So seeing a film like John Carpenter's Vampires was a bit of an exception to the rule. I don't think I had seen a vampire film that showed vampires in such a bestial manner. Now, this was actually before I saw From Dusk Till Dawn, which came out in 1996. So Carpenter's Vampires was more or less my major introduction to vampires being feral, nasty creatures. And, yeah, left a hell of an impression. So, that being said, I feel the reason why I still have a partiality to this film is it's basically a Western. It's a Western that just happens to have vampires in it. And if you know John Carpenter, the man loves his Westerns. He has tried to incorporate some sort of Western genre element in every single one of his movies. But in John Carpenter's Vampires, it is very prevalent. It is right there in your face. It is practically the Wild Bunch with fangs. So, it mainly concentrates on the trials and tribulations of Jack Crow, played with manic intensity by James Woods, and he leads a crew of vampire hunters. Now, these guys aren't necessarily, strict by the book types, okay? They're not militant. They are mercenaries. They dress the way they want to dress. They, get around in whatever vehicle they have available, and they have this arsenal of, almost guerrilla-looking weapons that have actually been sanctified by the Vatican. And one day, after a successful hunt, Jack notices that the master vampire of the property they were raiding to get rid of vampires is missing. And this understandably worries him, but, the hunt ends, and they all go and party with hookers and booze and everything like that. That's what I love about the vampire hunters in this movie. They're very blue-collar, very salt of the earth, and they're very, very hardened. They're very uncomplicated, but when you have a film such as this, you can't really afford to spend too much time on character development. People are here to see vampires and vampire hunters duke it out. So anyhow, as it turns out, the master vampire, Valak, played by Thomas Ian Griffith, turns up, wreaks havoc, kills most of Jack's crew. Now, Jack and his 2IC, Montoya, they flee with a bitten prostitute played by Cheryl Lee named Katrina. Now, Katrina has a psychic link to Valak for about 48 or so hours before she turns. So within that time period, they have to try and find Valak, kill him, and hopefully, though optionally, save Katrina. So, this film gained considerable controversy when it came to the treatment of Katrina. First and foremost, I have to say this. Whatever criticism that is levelled at this film for being misogynistic, I want to address this right now. Yes, Katrina is very mistreated in this film. She is slapped, she is shaken, she's basically used as a tool to find Valak, okay? She does not register on a human scale to Jack Crow. Now, with Montoya, he comes to, become a little more sympathetic to her plight, but he himself does not turn soft, really. So a lot of the time she spends it, staring intently and in a feverish state when she patches into Valak during his travels. And But in saying that, the film does a good job at showing you that this woman is suffering. And I feel so much sympathy for her when I see her being subjected to either the abuses of the vampire hunters or undergoing this terrible transformation that will change her life forever. And I really have to applaud Cheryl Lee for working so hard and so much with what so little she's basically given. In the script, I would imagine that Katrina didn't necessarily have much of a function other than to be a part of the plot. But Cheryl Lee, who you will remember as Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks, she is able to imbue Katrina with more humanity, with her face and her expressionistic eyes and her body language and everything like that. You can't help but feel genuine compassion for her. And whatever hatred you do feel, it's mainly leveled towards the male characters, specifically Jack Crow. Now, Jack Crow is the anti-hero. He is a very typical John Carpenter trope. I mean, yes, at the end of the day, I guess he does heroic stuff, but he's not a nice guy. He drinks, he smokes, he possibly takes drugs, but we don't actually see this. He's very abusive to people who are outside of his circle of slayers. So, there's one of the greatest moments of Jack Crow in this movie is when he has finished slapping around a young priest who has been tasked to help him and Montoya. And his name is Father Adam Gitu, played by Tim Giddy. And there is this moment of which Jack Crow just unleashes unholy hell on Adam, just beats the crap out of him, kicks him, spits on him, everything. And, afterwards, when they've reconciled their differences, at least temporarily, he turns to Father Adam and asks if he got a hard-on. Yes, Jack Crow is that sort of character. He is deeply unpleasant, but when push comes to shove, and when you realise that, there's the vampires and then there's the slayers. Jack Crow is basically the one who is basically saving humanity, but that's not exactly a goal of his. Jack Crow, he's something. Daniel Baldwin does a pretty respectable job as Montoya. Once again, he's not the most developed character, not exactly the deepest, but when he starts to feel for Katrina, when he begins to realise that what Katrina is going through is a very traumatic and terrible experience, you do see a sense of strong compassion in him. And, it is kind of a sweet show, even though, to begin with, he's slapping Katrina around because she, tries to bite him, and thereby passing the infection onto him. Once again, Montoya and Crow are not the most likeable of people. Which brings me to Thomas Ian Griffith as Valak. I had a huge crush on him. I'm not gonna lie, I thought he was one of the hottest things I had ever seen. But what I really do like about his portrayal is that he is a neo-Christopher Lee. He's tall, he's dark, he's menacing, and he is feral. He's not in the movie a lot, but when he is, he makes a hell of an impression. Griffith knows how to move. He moves like a panther, and he has a very distinct predatory look about him. He does look regal and elegant, contrary to what Jack Crow says with vampires not being all sort of classy and that sort of stuff, but he is still an animal. He is still a rabid, ferocious creature. And if you get in his way, and if you have something he wants, he will get it, and he will kill you. Simple as that. And all the vampires in this film have that quality. None of them give interviews. None of them pine for their lost loves. They do their own thing. They're all They were all animals. And it's just so wonderful to see a change of pace like that. Around about the same year, in 1998, Blade had came out, and that was more or less a very action-heavy movie, but the vampires were very sort of contemporary and modern, and had a, you know, a human edge to them. With the vampires and John Carpenter's vampires, no. They are beasts in man's clothing. Yeah, the entire film has a really very Sergio Leone slash Howard Hawks look to it. The way that Mexico is filmed in this movie, it is beautiful. It can look decrepit and uninviting and foreboding, but at the same time, it is wide and expansive, and it really fosters a sense of wonderment when you see it. But the cinematography is pretty darn good, and that sort of works in the movie's favour. This world that the vampires inhabit, it is big, right? And, it's just a matter of time before the vampires meet the hunters, and when it does, like, the dunes of New Mexico run red with the blood. It is a pretty good-looking movie, and that's not exactly, the first thing that people tend to praise about the film. Now, it is obviously not perfect. There are plot holes everywhere, and one of them majorly involves a very particular character, and played by Maximilian Schell, who plays a cardinal. After I watched it the first time, I thought it was the most perfect movie ever, but as time's gone on, and I watched the movie more, and I'm able to deconstruct it, it is an uneven film. Like, in the middle, like, after Crowe and Montoya escape Valak from the hotel with Katrina in tow, it slows down a little. Now, that's not to say it's boring, but a lot of the time is spent with the vampire slayers. And I just wonder, Valak has a plan to walk in sunlight. He has a particular hankering for a special relic that will enable that. Now, it would have been nice to have occasionally caught up with Valak, or at least some of his minions, looking for this thing and roaming the countryside and just, causing havoc. Like, build up the stakes. Build up the stakes a little bit more, because, this could have potentially been a film that was a pseudo-apocalypse sort of thing. There are a lot of missed opportunities in this film, but what ultimately saves it is the depiction of the vampires and the depiction of the slayers. The slayers have to be just as vile as the creatures they hunt. And that's why I feel Jack Crowe really fits into the niche. Like, you're not going to cheer him on in any other film except this one. So, a special mention on the score by John Carpenter and the Texas Toadlickers. Really cool. I have the CD of the film myself, and yeah, it's got a very sort of a blues western sort of sound, and with saxophones and synthesizer and that sort of stuff. It's a very eclectic soundtrack, but it perfectly matches the setting of the film and the nature of the characters involved. It's really, really cool. So, as a final analysis, I give John Carpenter's Vampires a 3.5 out of 5. As I've grown older, the initial mystique and love I have for this film have faded, but that doesn't mean to suggest that I can't still enjoy it on its own merits. And in saying that, if you can get past the crudeness of the film and how lewd it can be in a couple of places, it is still pretty fun, if you have a sense of humour, or something. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.